Hi y'all, welcome to my Hypertravel with Hardie video series in which we'll travel the world through my eyes and pictures I took 10 to 20 years ago. This time we'll be going to India, West India. Last time we did North India, so this time we'll do the West. This was all originally part of one continuous trip in the year 2014, which started in Kolkata and went all across North India and Rajasthan before crossing the border from Amritsar to Lahore, Pakistan in the far northwest of India. I stayed in Pakistan about a week, meanwhile getting an Afghan visa, but ultimately heading out due to a lingering cold in the weather and in my body. I couldn't talk. I could open my mouth and formal words, but nothing would come out. I got my Afghan visa though, with plenty of time to enter the country, so I came back to India to weather the winter. Now I'm in Mumbai and the weather is nice. I like West India also, so far at least, as long as the weather is good. And it's a quite bit different from the north, because if the north of India has the high and mighty, holier-than-thou reputation from its spiritual traditions of Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism, along with the Brahmin caste that conceived them, it's also to a large degree stuck in that glorious past and the poverty that it sustains. But Mumbai is maybe not the best measure of that with its mafia and slums that would defy Delhi, but it will get better down the coast. For me, the best analogy is that in the north you'll rarely see a modern supermarket, but in the west you'll see plenty. And probably more traditional marketplaces also, since the north has few of those either, believe it or not. What Brits and others would call the CBD, the Central Business District, Indians would call the bazaar, the market, or stalls lined chock-a-block up and down the street with no design or deliberation, just dedication. Mumbai is something of a mix of the two traditions. Starts off bad near the airport. I had a room with no window. But it improves when I move into the center. I only wish that I had read Shantaram before I visited, so that I could have compared notes with the manuscript. But now it may be too late, since they've apparently blacklisted me. We'll see. I never used Lonely Planet much, and it seemed out of date, even in 2014. So I reverted to my transportation hub instincts, and that means staying near the railway station, a vast improvement. From there, in Mumbai, you'll quickly find Kolaba, which includes the Leopold Cafe, dating from 1871, if you're so inclined and well endowed. I'm usually broke, haha, or so it seemed back then, but the weather feels good if nothing else, and the seaside strolls always make for some smiles, so I enjoyed my stay. Next up, Pune. For me, Pune always has extra baggage, which is Bhagwan Shri Rajneesh, also known as Osho, who I once lived in the same state with back in my Oregon days in the early 80s, when we both lived there almost simultaneously, albeit in separate neighborhoods of the state. To make a long story short, it wasn't pretty, and many conflicts and lawsuits ensued, while Rajneesh Osho counted his Rolls Royces and his spiritual splendor. They say his teachings were heavily tantric. I'd probably prefer the term Vajrayana. When the dust cleared, Rajneesh hightailed it out of there with that tail between his legs on a beeline for Pune, after being denied entry to 20 or more other countries. The spiritual center that he established in his 5 years there still exists, and elsewhere, with an abundance of adepts long after Osho's departure, but not much for the average tourist, for better or worse. In fact, it's almost refreshingly boring. If he transplanted northern wisdom to western circumstance, that would seem to be embodied in the sacred cows, which are almost everywhere. Alas and alack, I'm not a disciple. Next stop is Goa. Goa is something of a jewel in the crown of Western Indian tourism. Or indeed all Western tourism, above and beyond the spirituality and drugs of the north or the mafia prostitution and drugs of Mumbai. Because Goa has something infinitely more power than all that. Alcohol! Quick! Tell the Europeans. But they already know, because they're at the heart of it. The Portuguese here long before any other European foreigners. And they were not only here, but Indonesia, China, Malaysia, Thailand, the Philippines, Taiwan, and elsewhere too. And they not only had wine everywhere they went, but they had tables, known as mesa, and they had soap, sabaw, and some variation of those words is in the native language of almost every language in the region. So remind the locals of that every time they claim that Europeans smell bad. Goa is a strange member of the Indian group also, without much in the way of cities, but very much in the persistence of culture. Because while the Portuguese haven't been gone for very long, their Europeanness still persists, and all in general harmony with the others. That means good parties famous throughout the region. But for me, it only gets better the farther south you go. Because there is still a touch of inauthenticity to Goa that gives me pause, while further south there is none of that. The presence of Syrian Christians, altogether a different breed and era than that of the Portuguese Christians. That means Kerala, domain of those Indian fanatics in the serious know, with beaches and cities, in addition to whatever substances you may need to put some spice on your daily omelette. The capital of Kerala is Trivandrum, or something like that, better known to many of us as Trivandrum. Now, the city may not mean much to anyone else, but to me it's famous for its supermarkets, something so rare as to seem illegal up north, anywhere up north. Here they're de rigueur. And if that fails to inspire you, then go to the beach. There are plenty of them. The first one on my list is Varkala, which may or may not be the best. The state of Kerala, way down south, is where those beach-coming backpackers in the know go when Mumbai leaves them feeling cold and Goa leaves them feeling guilty. Here you're back in the real India, at least, both good and bad. The good is that you're actually in a foreign country and not just a tourist colony. The bad, depending on your taste, is that alcohol, once again, is a precious commodity. That's no problem for me, but it is for some people. But the worst part is that the banks don't work. You never really know until you enter a country or a province whether your ATM card is going to work or not. But no luck here. Welcome to India. The power isn't much better. Ditto the net. The beaches aren't bad, though. Better than Goa. Or what I saw there, anyway. And the cliffs are pretty spectacular. There's even something of a focus for the locus of the social scene here, along the little backpacker's miracle mile that meanders along the top of the hill. Of course, there's rarely a railing there, so caveat viator. There are temples and other sites of religious significance, this being a minor pilgrimage location and all. But the main object of adoration seems to be the sun itself, here fully tropical and without the atmospheric fogs and particulates that plague other areas of India. Here you'll go to the beach to cool off, not to warm up. Here you'll have to ritually douse yourself with cool water after every foray into the sun and humidity 3 or 4 times a day at last count. Might as well wash your clothes at the same time, since they'll already be soaked. Next stop is Aleppi. Aleppi, aka Alappuzha, doesn't look like much at first glance. Just another decrepit little city in southern India, hot and humid, funky and fuming. That viewpoint, however, ignores Aleppi's position on the edge of a vast system of inland backwaters that connect much of the region and towns. And it also underlies the region's tourist industry. There's even a ferry to neighborhood villages and towns. No, the electrical grid and Wi-Fi are no better than they are in Varkala, but here you'd expect that. In Varkala, especially Goa, it seems negligent and downright insulting to the hundreds and thousands of tourists who expect and deserve more and better. After all, many people fly in directly from Europe on pricey flights expecting a seaside honeymoon, not a sweltering survival course. It's no big deal for me. I don't need to get all romantic with myself. I usually get lucky anyway. So Aleppi is fine, but not enough to hold me. I finally found a bank to take my ATM card, so I got wings. See you in Kochi. Kochi's worth it. Maybe not for the beach, though. I really don't know, but for the historic city itself, it's based around the old fort and port. This was an old stronghold for the Portuguese and an entrepot for many over the centuries, including ancient Christian sects and Jews expelled from the Roman burning of the temple at Jerusalem in 70 AD. The fact that it was so easily reachable from the early Roman world even adds fuel to the fire as to whether Jesus himself might not have wintered over here in his formative years, doing something similar to what the Beatles would do some 2,000 years later. Add to that reasonable prices and quality of rooms, a power grid that generally stays on, and a Wi-Fi that generally stays up, and you've got a pretty nice place to hang. I only wish I'd known sooner, but things like that are hard to predict. And I'm sure there are decent beaches to be had here too, even if maybe not exactly surfer's paradise. It's not like I'm looking to lie in the sun on a rock somewhere. Next stop is Kovalam. Kovalam is the kind of place that Lonely Planet writers like to disparage as having sold out. With their chock-a-block cafes and resto bars and boutiques a la Kuta, while noting how Varkala up the road manages to maintain its wild and rustic, more authentic nature. But I beg to differ. For one thing, Kovalam ain't that bad. For another thing, Varkala ain't that good. These are basically your two beach options within an hour's ride of the Keralan capital, Trivandrum, aka Tiruvananthapuram. True, Kovalam is a fairly homogenized and pasteurized version of an inland Indian beach town, leaning toward European models and menus with paved sidewalks and handrails to boot. All clean and neat and ready for business. Is that such a bad thing? Lonely Planet makes it sound like Kuta Beach in Bali, sprawling for miles down a previously pristine coast, serving banana pancakes in what were once temples, and drinking wine from monkey skulls. Nothing could be further from the truth. This trip is over. I'll fly back north and continue to Afghanistan, as already reported. From there, I'll catch a flight back south to Sri Lanka and the Maldives, which will be the next episode that I'll narrate here. If you like this content, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time in, where? Sri Lanka, Maldives. Bye-bye now.